and the thickness will vary from system to system. The most popular is the silicone-based version, hence silicone edge graphics, but PVC gasket can also work. Silicone is usually a milky white with a rubbery finish, whereas PVC tends to be clear with a smoother finish. Okay, next we have the decorative component. The silicone is sewn around the perimeter of the fabric. While a number of materials and printing processes are possible using the idea of SEG, dye sublimation inks on polyester are most widely used. The graphics must be taught, so precise measurements are a must. Make sure to have a clear direction from your supplier or give clear direction to your customer on appropriate measurements points for SEG pieces, especially when a frame cannot be provided for fitting. The number of accessories is growing for this construction. I consider powder coating a great value add for SEGs. Powder coating for the frame was introduced as a way to add a cleaner finish to make the frame less noticeable. For backlit applications, LEDs are the most popular lighting choice, but we occasionally do see frames using fluorescents. Some markets benefit from shelving, brackets, and other areas for merchandising product. Feet or base plates are used to make the pieces freestanding. Next, I'm going to cover the basic applications for SEG construction. SEGs provide neatly finished corners for a professional look, so they can function well as a wall-mounted frame. Typically, the extrusions used in the application need support for structural integrity, so they will need to be directly adhered to the wall. So you actually have to attach them to a back substrate. The beauty of this is that large spans only require a perimeter frame to hold in place. Instead of being constrained by typical canvas sizes, SEG graphics can cover massive spans, allowing for larger-than-life applications, such as this installation of zipper art and then a large graffiti wall. SEGs are perfect for store fixtures. They allow for quick change-out of graphics without the initial high upfront cost of large-scale LED screens. They are also better at customer level since the materials are definitely less breakable. Because of the lightweight nature of SEG systems, they can be easily rearranged within an environment and help with traffic flow. Silicone edge graphics have been rapidly gaining popularity as a display solution. Displays are temporary in nature, so the minimal framing, clean look, and quick assembly are all advantageous. Fabric can be washed and steamed, and fabric graphics are just as durable as traditional graphics. Finally, we have the sexiest application for SEG construction, the light box. Always drawing attention, SEG light boxes are internally lit using sheet or strip lighting. Typically, light boxes work best with a depth of about 3 to 8 inches to allow the light to bounce around inside the frame and spread properly. Oftentimes, special versions of the extrusion that allow for a frameless look, meaning the light bleeds all the way to the edge of the graphic, are used to avoid shadows. So you can see here some light box type applications where there's very, very minimal shadowing. Given their popularity, I'm sure you've seen the SEG panels, perhaps even without noticing their fabric. Within retail spaces, they will be utilized in store windows, as you can see here, as a backdrop for product displays, as directional signage, and as wall art. Silicone edge graphics are also covering the floor of many popular trade shows. The dye sublimation prints have vivid color while retaining a warm feeling thanks to the nature of fabric. Polyester is inherently strong, resilient, and dimensionally stable, making it a great choice for museum applications. Topical finishes can be added to increase the stain resistance, and if damaged, SEG graphics are definitely much easier to replace than murals painted directly on the wall. SEG images can be switched out to accommodate rotating exhibits, completely transforming the space. I love it when these pieces are used to change the look of a lobby, conference, or reception area. It is easy to get comfortable with neutrals, but large graphics can be deployed to change the look of interiors. Okay, so let's take a more detailed look at the benefits of silicone edge graphics, if I haven't covered them already. Okay, I will cover some of the key selling points of this type of system. Silicone edge graphics has been spreading rapidly, and it's important to understand why. SEGs tend to make a great first impression. Dye sublimation graphics are vivid, and polyester-based materials replicate a number of other fabrics. With high-quality files, the prints can even look like a piece of museum-quality fine art. The appearance carries all the way to the border of the frame, with the sew lines hidden within the metal edge. The visible area of the frame, regardless of the specific system, tends to be very slim and clean-looking. As you can see on this one, this edge right here is very, very minimal. And you have powder coating as an added value add. There are virtually no limitations on sizes. Fabric comes in roll goods, and it's not unusual to have over 50 yards on one roll. So pieces can be made at custom sizes to fit your needs, rather than creating artwork to meet the substrate size, which is a definite advantage for the appearance. Since the majority of SEG pieces are printed, obviously graphics, silicone edge graphics, there are a number of polyester fabrics, from suedes to canvas to satin knit and more, that can provide a variety of finished looks. You can also use the same system to incorporate non-printed materials as accents. A second major selling point is the ease of installation. In retail settings, it's almost always an associate that changes out the signage. Once the frame is in place, it is a skill that can be quickly learned using supplier instructions or that little site called YouTube, using the tutorials. Drywall mounted SEG pieces are typically hung in a similar way to a standard picture. Drywall screws and a level are the main materials needed to hang wall-mounted SEG frames. Other styles may require eye bolts for hanging or bases for standing, but again, it's fairly simple, not necessarily super custom type accessories. During the install, time is of the essence, especially when you're in a public space. In high traffic areas such as corridors, the space may be accessible round the clock. In retail, an associate will have minutes to change out the pieces. Obviously, they don't want to have downtime or have their associates staying a lot later. And a trained installer can switch out a graphic in about 10 minutes. Graphics in a retail location have historically been printed posters. The paper can crease in storage, making it difficult to reuse. This has meant replacement images would need to be ordered and shipped, resulting in added cost and time. Fabric, on the other hand, can release wrinkles fairly easily, takes up very little space, and can even be folded instead of rolled when stored. Now, if they do get dirty in storage, printed graphics are generally easy to wash. Depending on the size, a standard washing machine will often suffice. You simply use a cool water wash, cool dryer, and mild detergent. Not only during storage and install, but also during shipping, there is a decrease in the risk for damage. The fabric is shipped separate from the frame. Hence, the fabric with silicone has nothing to snag on, assuming it's properly bagged or boxed. Many fabrics used in SEG are around 5 ounces per square yard in weight. Obviously there are variations, but this is kind of a standard that we see on a lot of the SEG pieces. So what this means is that the fabric for a 9-foot by 9-foot wall, we're talking just the fabric, for a 9-foot by 9-foot wall is between 3 and 5 pounds. So I would be hard-pressed to find anyone that couldn't ship or handle something with that weight. Lower shipping weight means lower charges from the carrier, as well as lower drayage charges in a trade show environment. Okay, last but not least is the sustainability of the construction. Polyester is a recyclable fabric, and thanks to the recycled yarn manufacturers such as Repreve, there are more fabrics on the market that contain a percentage of recycled content. While these systems typically reuse aluminum framing, at the end of the useful life, SEG frames can be recycled just like typical aluminum. And as an added perk, you can also make a little money off of this from recycling companies. And moving beyond recycling, pieces that can improve the long-term usability of a space can increase the sustainability as well. Noise pollution is a major concern in hospitality, and fabric naturally dampens sound. With the SEG system, it is easy to incorporate other acoustical solutions behind the fabric. Acoustical panels can be reused many times along with the frame as new graphics are utilized. I'm sure others on the call have additional benefits of this construction, but these have been the ones I have come across most often. Thank you so much for your attention.
Feel free to put them in the question box on the screen, and we will review them at the end of the presentation. Our next presenter, Paul Lilienthal, is president and owner of Pictura Graphics. Pictura is an industry leader in large format graphics for retail, POP, exhibits and events, and corporate interiors. The company has extensive experience in the production of fabric graphics for many applications, including tension fabric, SEG, and custom applications. Paul?
Good morning, everybody. Do I have controls here now?
Yes, you do, Paul.
Okay, thank you. I guess I do. Okay, I was charged with kind of more of the production side of the SEG. So what I've got here is critical components for success of executing SEG projects for your clients. One of the things that we have many manufacturers that we have to accommodate because our clients are builders, whether it's for an agency or a trade show application. So we have to know all the manufacturers, whether it's AGAM, Oxynorm. There's probably a dozen of them and then some. So that includes, the gasket requirements for each, the width of the opening of the frame, and then the right fabric applications for each one, whether it's frontlit, backlit, those types of things. So measuring guidelines are critical, and I'll lead into how we handle that. From a finishing requirements, years ago you could get by with good old-fashioned hot knifing and things like that, but the error rate was very high. So we invested a lot in technology. We were one of the first in the country to have a 16 by 20 foot flatbed laser cutter, which increased our throughput probably 15 to 20 times. And then after that, we automated the automated sewing machines came out. So we've increased our precision dramatically, which leads to the last piece of it is test fitting as much as possible. Even though you might have good measuring guidelines, we still have a lot of manufacturers' hardware here that we test fit. And then ultimately we QC every SEG graphic that goes out as far as measuring and just overall quality. Here's an example of what we send out to our clients from a measuring guide, because even the width of the opening could be, 1/8 of an inch or something like that. So if you're combined off a quarter, with the precision that everybody wants, it can go sideways pretty quick. So you can see where we have, the measurement from the inside groove to the outside groove, and then down below, just what the different types of SEG extrusion frames look like and how the fabric goes in, because you can wrap corners and things like that. So this has helped out a lot. We send it out to the project managers at our clients. So again, it doesn't matter what manufacturer it is, but we do ask that they disclose what that is, so that way we can pick the right gasket and also, compare that with our experience. So pretty much all our SEG projects flow through a certain pathway here. Somebody reviews it to make sure that the gasket and the frame manufacturer are married together. This is probably one of the most critical things that we've come across is just the installation of the graphics. We've gotten into so many disputes with the clients. It's 2 inches too short, 1 inch too long. So I think people are more adept to install these better than they used to, but still you have to insert it at the 4 corners first versus just 2 at the top. I've seen graphics that be 4 inches one way off or anything like that, and then the client actually wants us to send an installer out there to fix it, and then we do, and it's perfect. So it's a little bit of back and forth with the client, but this guide has really helped. So what we start with is a comprehensive review of the design, and again, usually it starts with the manufacturer renderings. We like to see the skeleton so that way we can see how many frame breaks there are, and I'll get into why we need that later. Whether there's doors, short panels, single-sided, double-sided. So this is an example of a wireframe for I think this was a 20 by 40 exhibit. So again, this is like a before and after. So we look at the measurements in total, and then we review the hardware structure. So you can see the specifications are pretty precise. But ultimately, if you look at the picture to the lower right, the test fitting is critical. So in this instance, there was a bunch of panels where I think each panel was about 39 inches wide, and it was probably a 20-foot wall so that's probably about 6 or 8 panels. So it's what the clients want to see is one continuous fabric fit and finish. So we actually have to jump each of the panels, splice them. So we have to know exactly where those panels line up in order to get the splice correct. Otherwise, they have trouble, at the setup, and it just doesn't look right. So I think that's been one of the big things that we've invested in is frames from the manufacturer. This is an interesting, I'm going to get into some examples now of some SEG applications. This is a retail backlit fixture that we just prototyped and executed. So the client asked us to retrofit their current fixture from traditional map frame to SEG. So we worked with a fixture manufacturer to develop a four-sided interior SEG skeleton. So that's on your left, and the design is on the right. So again, taking SEG is great for backlit for retail because you're replacing a lot of the old, snap flame fluorescent type applications, and the clients are looking for brighter, more easy to install graphics. So this was one that we recently did. Again, Valerie showed some applications, so I'll do a little bit of the same. We're seeing a lot of it in the windows as far as backlit. Backlit seems to be the big trend these days. So, and again, you have to really understand the manufacturer of the frame and the right backlit material to put in there. And again, you have to the thing that we found is you have to understand your light source as well, whether it's perimeter, mesh, acrylic panel, because then you have all the pinholes and the hot spots. So essentially, we have a fabric designated for each type of application. So our project managers are required to know what that light source is, so that way, the execution is done correctly. Okay, what can go wrong? I would say just the sheer lack of experience with SEG. It isn't something that you can learn overnight. As Valerie can probably attest, it's years and years of experience and different types of applications, fabric, the marrying of the SEG with the right fabric. A lot of people will spec out a fabric that we may not feel is a good application, so then you have to re-engineer it and talk them into what we use and what we think is correct. But I still think the biggest thing that goes wrong is the field installation. It's kind of out of your control, and you have no idea if that individual or if that team has done it before. I think it's better than it has been. We actually had one this week we had 10 of them in a retail airport mall, and they were insistent that all 10 were 2 inches short, which, they have the same fixture in other retail locations, so the project manager basically tried to encourage them that we can hire an installer to go down there and do it correctly, and an hour later they said, oh, they all fit. So And again, we had to send out the install guide again, and I think it's a good idea if there's a YouTube thing. All those kind of tools are good, to be sending out, but you got to understand the other side of your client and how experienced are they. And that's all I have.
Okay, our final presenter is Tree Pham, who is the U.S. and Canadian Sales Manager for Miller Weldmaster Corp. Miller Weldmaster produces a series of machines to weld flexible material for safe hanging and reinforcement. In the print industry, Tree consults to clients in wide format screen printing and commercial printing to establish the most efficient solution to weld and finish flex-based prints. Tree?
Thanks, Mike. Hello, everyone. Thank you again for spending time with us to discuss silicone edge graphics. My name is Tree, pronounced like a tree outside. I am with Miller Weldmaster, and we manufacture equipment that finishes banners in the wide format for the wide provider. Thank you, IPI Fabric Graphics, for asking us to be a part of this group and sharing our experience. All right, so we'll get into it. There are quite a few factors to consider when finishing SEG graphics in relation to the equipment used. Finishing SEG consists mainly of sewing a silicone or PVC profile to your fabric graphic. There have been times where I've seen it glued or taped, but sewing really has been the preferred method for a variety of reasons. With working with knit and woven materials, handling your print going through a sewing machine may cause your material to stretch. Having the right type of equipment will allow you to make these adjustments for different fabrics to make sure your silicone and your fabric are applied at a 1-to-1 ratio. Silicone is the most popular type of edging media, but I've seen clients use PVC like Valerie said. The preference in silicone has been the elasticity. This makes it easy to ship, unpack, and install with virtually no memory or bending in the edge. PVC edging will tend to warp and hold memory for a while, if not permanently sometimes, especially in cooler weather. The third item to consider is to know the width of silicone you plan on offering. Really, you have no control over this if you're providing a recover to an existing frame, but know that Paul and Valerie and myself, we've seen them all, 11, 12, 14, 16 millimeter edging, and that's really just to match frames that are already installed onto walls or freestanding structures in the field. Pull tabs are necessary. I think someone had a picture earlier of a pull tab. It really makes it easier for your installer to replace the graphic. These pull tabs are inserted manually during sewing one of the edges. And then lastly, using single or double needle has been a topic since I started working with SEG around 7 years ago. Personally, I haven't seen any differentiating factors on why to use one or the other, but it does seem that everyone is using the single needle approach in the past year or so. And we'll see if this works. Now, this next slide is a YouTube link to a short video that I wanted to share with you to quickly show how silicone edging is applied to the back of a fabric graphic. Now, I hope the video quality will be okay for everyone on this call. If not, I'm sure IPI will gladly send out the link after the webinar. This setup shows a single needle stitch with 12 millimeter silicone. The silicone is guided from underneath the table through a dispenser, and the fabric edge is then guided by the operator through the top tooling. Now I have two pieces of equipment that I wanted to discuss today. As you know, SEG is typically sewn on. Virtually every member of ISAI has a sewing machine for industrial use. Your current sewing machine will certainly sew SEG. There may be some adjustments for needle type and thread size, but a manual sewing machine will do the job perfectly fine. You'll want to look into having guides, some people call them jigs, made to help your operator become more accurate in sewing the silicone. Certainly the main benefit is cost, being that you already have this machine in-house. And then mechanically, there's nothing new to learn. Running silicone through a sewing machine is fairly easy if you have the proper guide. And what's turning into the standard in SEG finishing is the system in this slide and competitive models like it. This is an industrial sewing machine made with proper componentry specifically to manage silicone edging. There are guides to handle the silicone on the fabric. The conveyor table, typically 4 to 8 feet long, synchronized with the speed of the sewing machine to help handle not just big, heavy prints, but also small graphics from stretching as it's going through the sewing machine. And all of these features really add up to less downtime, with scissors or measuring or guessing, and of course your scrap rate. And when you research the systems out there that are similar to the one that we offer, you'll notice similarities in these features. It will be rare that you will need to take a pair of scissors to trim thread or cut silicone. There is an optical sensor that knows where the edge of the banner is approaching and how many stitches it needs to get to the end of the banner. Securing the edge of the silicone front and back with a back stitch is automatically done on a system like this. And then there's also cooled compressed air that's forced at the needles, and that helps extend its life and prevent needle breakage as it's going in and out of the silicone at a very fast rate. And there's also options for when the machine cuts the silicone where it needs to, the next length of silicone is automatically fed, ready to sew the next side of fabric. And really, when you add all this up, this is where I determine with my customers at what volume is it worth it to pay for these extra features in this new machine, and when it's best to stick with a sewing machine that you've had for years. And I've certainly seen both models of investment when working with my clients and sitting down and figuring out ROI. These next key points are best practices to allowing your sewing machine operator to worry about really one thing, and that's to sew silicone edge accurately. I believe a couple of these points were already covered by Paul. Number 1 and 3 go hand in hand. After measuring the frame that you need to supply the print for, be ½ an inch outside the live area. This ½ inch is what's used to sew the silicone edging, and that's what's inserted into the extrusion. Whether on a manual or automated sewing machine, a straight cut will help your operator guide the material accurately. Paul mentioned he has a laser cutter on a bed or a table. I've also seen ultrasonic cutters out there, and if you're an awning manufacturer in the IFEI world, you may already have access to an ultrasonic cutter. Also, make sure that you're keeping up on the PM schedule of your sewing machine. Clean your machine regularly to remove lint and dirt. Brush out the bobbin casing. Take a vacuum to it, and whatever you do, don't use compressed air in your sewing machine. It's not healthy for all the small parts. And make sure your machine is lubricated according to your user manual. And the last point on this best practices is when to consider using silicone edging coated with powder or ones without, and that's dictated by your sewing machine type. There are some sewing machine systems with very specific guides that guide your silicone in place, and some of these guides require your silicone to be coated with powder to feed through these guides smoothly. And as my last slide, silicone graphics are new, relatively new to many retail outlets and print providers. It's nice to know, though, that if you invest in the right piece of equipment, the same sewing machine is easily adaptable to sew other points of purchase in trade show graphics. So sewing machines that can sew your SEG can also sew binding for teardrop flags and 2-inch Velcro for stretching around a collapsible frame. It's always going to come up. Print providers take that type of work daily anyways, so having a versatile machine really is key. And then certainly vinyl banners can also be finished on the same sewing machine used for silicone edge graphics. And that's all I have today of equipment and process of sewing silicone edging. I believe IFEI is sending out my contact information in a follow-up email, so feel free to reach out to me with any questions, or if we need to trial any specific materials with silicone edging, we'll be glad to help you out. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Tree. And at this time, I'll be asking our presenters for questions, asking some questions that have been submitted through the chat box. And not a lot of them, and a couple of them I think may have already been addressed to a certain degree. One of the questions was, are there limitations to the size of a SEG panel? And I believe that was addressed that it's pretty much unlimited. The question that came to my mind also was regarding seams within those panels. Is it common they have seams, or you try to just strictly limit it to your frame panels?
I can take that one. So we do, I mean, obviously, you know, if you can do it within the width of the materials, a lot of the materials we're using are 10-foot and 15, 16-foot wide. With those, you know, it's really, I mean, the sky's the limit. One of the things that you'll notice is a lot of times the seams, especially like Paul had kind of mentioned, you know, once a company knows how to do silicone edge graphics, your graphics are going to line up really, really nicely. So where there is a seam, typically it's not very obvious, and you know, and then again in one direction you can go fairly unlimited. I would be hard pressed to find, you know, an area that would need more than 50 yards of printed fabric. So to answer that question, I mean, from our perspective, it really is limitless. You know, as long as you might have a seam every 10 feet or so, but that's not, I mean, it's typically very discreet.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Another question that came in is, what percentage of SEG jobs are retrofitted versus a new build?
I can take that. I can take that one. I think it's we find that we're doing probably 75% retrofits versus new builds, just because that's the nature of our client base. I would think, you know, there's some large retail programs that are out there that, you know, your replacement graphics are, you know, sometimes monthly, sometimes bi-monthly. So it all just depends on if you're working with, you know, end user clients, or if you're working with agency clients that have a lot of frames in inventory that they rent out, or things like that. So ours is primarily you know, retrofits.
Okay. And go ahead.
I was going to say, we tend to have a little bit of this switch. I mean, I would say probably about 70-80% is new build, and then the rest is retrofit. So it's always interesting when we get some of those retrofits, like Paul can attest to, where it's like, okay, we don't know all the variables, but that's where those precise measurements are really important.
And so this, would you have any idea as far as, I understand all the jobs are different, but as far as when you're doing some of those retrofits, the repeat customers, is that traditionally, as an average, is it monthly, yearly, or quarterly? What would be a common time frame for those retrofits?
From ours, I mean, a lot of it really varies by client. I know, you know, sometimes we do have things where quarterly they're changing them out. Sometimes the intention is to change it out quarterly, and it goes to, you know, 6 months or so. So I mean, it does kind of vary depending on, because we have some of those programs, but a lot of them are kind of newer types of programs that we're still kind of establishing.
Okay. Okay, and I think one final question that I have here, does the gasket need to be matched to the extrusion, or are they pretty much universal or interchangeable?
I'll take that one. I mean, we've got it pretty much figured out which frames can accept which type of silicone edge. So sometimes we've probably got like two or three of them that we can interchange with different hardware manufacturers based on the width of the opening. You know, and again, that's the knowledge that you have to have. But sometimes, you know, a client will dictate which silicone that you use sometimes too, because they want it tighter or they want it looser, or so. I mean, and not all hardware manufacturers have their own gasket. Some just sell the frames, so you're left with figuring it out.
Okay. All right. That seems to be the extent of our of the questions. So again, at this time, I would just thank you all for attending, and thank you to our presenters, Valerie, Paul, and Tree. And just a reminder, a PDF copy of the PowerPoint will be sent to all attendees, and you know, just be on the lookout for upcoming seminars from the FGA. And again, thank you for your attendance.
Thank you, guys.